What happens when a billionaire CEO goes undercover in his own company and falls for an employee who has no idea who he really is? This is the story of Marcus Chen, a man who thought he could keep his two worlds separate, and Elena Torres, the woman who made him forget which world he belonged to. It's a tale of deception, desire, and the devastating moment when lies collide with love. Get ready for a romance where every conversation deepens the connection, every touch raises the stakes, and one truth threatens to destroy it all. If you love stories about forbidden romance, corporate secrets, and relationships built on shaky ground, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss part 2, and drop a comment telling me, could you forgive someone who lied about their identity? Let's dive into Marcus and Elena's story. The conference room door slammed open. Marcus Chen stood at the head of the table, his jaw clenched so tight he thought his teeth might crack. Papers were scattered everywhere, and his board members looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "You want to do what?" The CFO's voice cut through the tension. "I'm going undercover," Marcus repeated. 30 days. As an intern in product development. "That's insane," someone muttered. Maybe it was. But Marcus had watched TechVision's employee satisfaction scores plummet for 6 months straight. Innovation had stalled. His best people were leaving. And the leaked documents suggesting corruption from his predecessor's tenure were threatening everything he'd built. He needed to understand what was really happening on the ground floor, away from the sanitized reports and carefully managed presentations. 2 days later, Marcus Chen ceased to exist. Mark Collins took his place. Thrift store clothes, nervous energy, and absolutely no idea how to work a standard office coffee machine. His first day started with humiliation. The coffee machine beat him. The printer jammed 3 times under his watch. And then she appeared. "You're the new intern?" Marcus looked up from the printer he'd just murdered and forgot every prepared response. Elena Torres stood there in paint-splattered jeans and an oversized sweater that somehow made her look both approachable and entirely intimidating. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her eyes, sharp, intelligent, exhausted, cut right through him. "I'm Mark," he managed.
Elena.
"Senior product designer." She glanced at the printer, now flashing angry red lights. "Did you just jam this thing again?" "I might have." She sighed, but there was something almost amused in her expression. "Come on. Apparently, I'm babysitting today. Try not to break anything else." The morning was a disaster. Every task Marcus attempted seemed designed to humble him. He couldn't figure out the filing system, accidentally deleted a file Elena needed, and nearly sent an internal memo to external clients. But what struck him most was the way Elena handled each mistake, with patience that seemed worn thin by larger battles, not his incompetence. "You're kind of a disaster, Mark," she said around noon, fixing yet another problem he'd created. "I'm really sorry. I promise I'm not usually this useless." "Everyone's useless on day 1. She handed him a stack of folders. "The trick is becoming less useless by day 2. They worked in relative silence until Patterson, the department head, stormed through. Marcus had read about Patterson in reports, high productivity numbers, low employee satisfaction, but watching him in action was different. The man stopped at a junior designer's desk, his voice loud enough to carry across the entire floor. "This is garbage, Jamie. Complete garbage. My 5-year-old could design something better." The young designer's face crumpled. "I can revise it. You've had 3 chances. Maybe you're just not cut out for this work." Marcus watched Jamie flee toward the bathroom, tears streaming. He started to stand, unsure what he'd do, but knowing he had to do something. Elena's hand on his arm stopped him. "Don't," she said quietly. "It'll only make it worse for Jamie." But that was typical. Elena's expression was hard. "Welcome to TechVision, Mark, where the corporate values on the wall don't match the reality on the floor." That afternoon they had a team meeting. Patterson presented a new product concept that had everyone nodding along, except Elena. Marcus watched her expression shift from attentive to confused to angry. "That's Jamie's design," Elena said, her voice cutting through Patterson's presentation. "The one you just called garbage this morning." The room went silent. Patterson's face turned red. I made significant modifications. You changed the color scheme. The core concept, the user interface, the accessibility features, that's all Jamie's work. Elena stood, gathering her things. If you're going to steal ideas, at least have the decency not to do it the same day you make someone cry. Careful, Torres. Patterson's voice was dangerous. There are plenty of designers who'd love your position. Then hire one who'll let you steal their work without calling you out on it. Elena headed for the door. I'm not that designer. Marcus found her in the stairwell 10 minutes later. She was leaning against the concrete wall, breathing hard, her hands shaking slightly. That was brave, he said. Elena laughed, but it was bitter. That was stupid. I've got student loans, Mark. My parents depend on money I send home every month. I can't afford to lose this job. Then why say anything? Because what's the alternative? Stay silent and become part of the problem. She looked at him, and Marcus felt the full weight of her conviction. Someone has to give a damn. Someone has to believe we can create things that actually matter, not just generate shareholder value for executives who don't even know our names. The CEO knows, Marcus said before his brain could stop his mouth. Elena's laugh was sharper this time.
Right.
Marcus Chen probably doesn't even know this floor exists. He's too busy in whatever penthouse office he has, making decisions that affect thousands of people he'll never meet. She pushed off the wall. That's how it works. The higher you climb, the less human you become. The less you remember what it's like to worry about rent or student loans, or whether speaking up will cost you everything. Marcus felt each word like a physical blow. Maybe he's trying. Trying what? To understand. Elena shook her head. If he wanted to understand, he'd come down here. He'd talk to people like Jamie who are brilliant but get crushed by terrible managers. He'd see that his company is bleeding talent because nobody up there cares about the people down here. She started down the stairs. But that would require admitting there's a problem, and executives don't like admitting they're wrong. That evening, the team headed to a dive bar down the street, apparently a Thursday tradition. Marcus planned to go home, but Elena caught his arm in the lobby. Come on, new guy. One drink. Consider it part of your training. The bar was everything Marcus's usual world wasn't. Cheap beer, sticky floors, music too loud for easy conversation. He nursed a $3 beer and wondered when he'd last been in a place like this. College, maybe? Before TechVision, before the suits and the board meetings and the weight of thousands of jobs on his shoulders. So, what's your story, Mark Collins? Elena asked, settling onto the stool next to him. What brings you to TechVision? Marcus had prepared for this question. Career change. I was in consulting. Hated it. Wanted to actually build things instead of just advising other people on how to build things. Consulting to intern seems like a big step backward. Maybe. Or maybe it's a step towards something real. He studied her. What about you? How'd you end up here? Elena took a long drink of her beer, and Marcus watched something vulnerable flicker across her face. My parents came here from Mexico when I was 3. My dad does construction. My mom cleans houses. Every dollar they made went into making sure my brother and I had better opportunities than they did. She smiled, but it was edged with old pain. I was the first in my family to go to college. Full scholarship to MIT. My parents cried for weeks straight when I got in. That's incredible. It should have been. It was for a while. Elena traced patterns in the condensation on her beer bottle. But then reality hits. You graduate with this fancy degree and all these ideas about changing the world, and you realize the world doesn't particularly want to be changed. You get a job at a company like this, and you're so grateful because it pays well and looks good on a resume, but then you see how it actually works. How good ideas get buried because they didn't come from the right person. How talented people get broken down by managers who peaked in their mediocrity, and I can't stand anyone who might be better than them. Why stay? Marcus asked quietly. Because quitting feels like admitting defeat. Like telling my parents their sacrifices weren't worth it. She looked at him, and Marcus saw the weight she carried. And because maybe, stupidly, I still believe I can make a difference. That somewhere in all the corporate garbage, there's room for work that actually matters. They talked until the bars started closing. About her classes at MIT, about the small apartment she shared with 2 roommates, about sending money home to her parents every month. Marcus asked questions he shouldn't know to ask, and Elena answered with an openness that made his chest ache with guilt. On the subway platform, waiting for trains going in opposite directions, Elena turned to him. Can I ask you something weird? Marcus's heart rate spiked.
Sure.
You don't talk like other interns. You ask different questions. You notice things most people don't. She tilted her head, studying him. Who are you really, Mark Collins? For one terrible, perfect moment, Marcus considered telling her everything. The words were right there, burning in his throat. But then her train arrived, and the moment passed. Just a guy trying to figure out where he belongs, Marcus said. Elena smiled, small, genuine, devastating. Aren't we all? She stepped onto the train, then turned back. Hey, Mark. Thanks for tonight. For listening. Most people don't actually listen anymore. The doors closed between them, and Marcus stood on the empty platform, watching her train disappear into the tunnel. His phone buzzed, his assistant, wondering about tomorrow's board meeting. Marcus ignored it. He was in so much trouble. 2 weeks in, and Marcus had stopped thinking of himself as the CEO. Mark Collins felt more real than Marcus Chen ever had, working late with Elena, learning the rhythms of the office, understanding the daily frustrations his reports had never captured. He'd uncovered evidence of his COO's embezzlement, confirmed the corruption he'd suspected, but those victories felt hollow compared to the other thing that was happening. He was falling for Elena Torres.
Hard.
It happened in small moments. The way she explained design concepts with her hands, sketching in the air. The fierce protectiveness she showed for junior team members. The laugh she tried to hide behind her hand when he made a stupid joke. Each moment drew him deeper into something that couldn't possibly end well. Earth to Mark. Elena waved a hand in front of his face. They were alone in the office again. It was past 9, and they were working on her accessibility proposal, the one Patterson had rejected without reading.
Zoned
out. You've been doing that a lot lately. Elena leaned back in her chair, studying him with those eyes that saw too much. What's going on with you? What do you mean? You've been weird all week.
Distracted.
And you keep getting these calls you won't answer in front of me. She crossed her arms. If you're interviewing somewhere else, just tell me. I won't be offended. I'm not interviewing anywhere. Then what? Marcus's phone buzzed again, his assistant, probably the 10th message today. Elena's eyes dropped to it, and Marcus saw her notice what he'd forgotten to hide. The phone case, subtle but expensive, the kind of detail someone like Elena, trained to notice design elements, would catch. That's a nice phone for an intern salary, she said carefully. It was a gift. From my mom. The lie came too easily now. She worries I won't stay in touch if I don't have good technology. Elena looked like she wanted to press further, but let it go. Your mom sounds nice. She is. That, at least, was true. Tell me more about your proposal. Walk me through the accessibility features again. Elena's face lit up. It always did when she talked about her work. Okay, so the core concept is adaptive interfaces that respond to individual user needs. Someone with limited vision gets automatic high-contrast options and screen reader optimization. Someone with motor control issues gets customizable touch targets and voice control integration. She pulled up her designs, and Marcus moved closer to see. Their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. The beauty is that it's all seamless, Elena continued, seemingly unaware of Marcus's suddenly racing pulse. The user doesn't have to dig through settings or declare their disability up front. The interface learns and adapts. It's dignified. It's empowering. She turned to him, and Marcus realized how close they were. It's the kind of thing TechVision should be building. Could be building if anyone up there gave a damn about anything besides profit margins. Tell me what you'd do, Marcus said quietly. If you ran this company, what would you change?
Elena laughed.
Besides everything?
Yeah.
Besides everything. She was quiet for a moment, her expression growing serious. I'd listen. Actually listen, not just pretend to listen in carefully managed focus groups. I'd come down from whatever executive floor exists and talk to the people doing the real work. I'd find out what breaks their hearts, what keeps them up at night, what they dream about building if someone would just give them a chance. That sounds naive. It is naive. Impossibly naive. Elena's voice softened. But maybe that's what's missing. Maybe we've all gotten so cynical, so used to how things are, that we've forgotten to imagine how things could be. Marcus thought about his office 40 floors up, about board meetings where humans became metrics, where decisions that affected thousands of lives were reduced to PowerPoint slides. What if the CEO is just as trapped as everyone else? What if he's so surrounded by processes and protocols and people telling him what he can't do that he's forgotten what's possible? Then he should fire everyone and start over, Elena said. Or step down and let someone lead who still remembers why the company exists. That's harsh. Is it? Elena met his eyes. Mark, do you know what our turnover rate is? 23% annually. Do you know how many brilliant people I've watched burn out and leave because they couldn't take the toxic management and the meaningless work anymore? Tech vision is bleeding talent, and whoever's at the top is either blind or doesn't care. Maybe he cares, Marcus said quietly. Maybe he's trying to fix it and doesn't know how. Then he should ask for help instead of pretending everything's fine while the company rots from the inside. Elena stood, pacing now.
I'm ranting.
This place it makes me so angry sometimes. We could be great. We could be building things that actually matter. Instead, we're designing widgets to increase engagement metrics by 0.3%. Marcus watched her pace, this brilliant, passionate woman who'd somehow gotten under his skin. Your proposal could change that. If the right people saw it. The right people won't see it. Patterson killed it, and that's that. Elena stopped pacing, her shoulders slumping. I'm tired, Mark. Tired of fighting battles I can't win. Tired of believing things can get better when all the evidence says they won't. Marcus made a decision that would probably haunt him. What if I told you I could get your proposal in front of the executive team? Elena stared at him. What? I have connections. From my consulting days. I can't guarantee anything, but I might be able to get it reviewed at a higher level. Mark, if Patterson finds out I went over his head, he won't find out. It'll be anonymous. They'll think it came through normal channels. Marcus stood, moving closer to her. Elena, your idea is too good to die in Patterson's inbox. Let me try. She searched his face, and Marcus forced himself to hold her gaze, to not reveal the truth that was screaming to get out. Finally, Elena nodded. Okay, but if this blows up in my face. It won't. I promise. That was 3 days ago. Now Marcus sat in his actual office, 40 floors up, reviewing Elena's proposal for the 3rd time. It was brilliant. Revolutionary. Exactly the kind of innovation TechVision needed. He'd forwarded it to his chief innovation officer that morning, and the response had been immediate and enthusiastic. His assistant knocked. Mr. Chen? The executive team wants to schedule a presentation with the designer. This Torres woman. They're very excited. Marcus's stomach dropped. When? Next week. Wednesday. They want you there for it. Of course they did. Because Marcus Chen, CEO, would absolutely attend a presentation for a potentially revolutionary product line. Mark Collins, intern, should absolutely not be anywhere near that boardroom. Confirm it, Marcus said, his voice hollow. He had 1 week. 1 week before Elena walked into that boardroom and saw him sitting at the head of the table. 1 week before everything imploded. His phone rang, his personal cell, the one Mark Collins used. Elena's name flashed on the screen. Hey, he answered, hating how easily he slipped into his Mark voice now. Mark. Oh my God. You're not going to believe this. Elena's excitement was palpable even through the phone. I got a call from the executive team. They want to review my proposal. They actually want to review it. That's amazing, Elena.
I'm terrified.
What if they hate it in person? What if I mess up the presentation? Her voice wavered. They said the CEO might be there. Chen himself. I'm going to present my work to the CEO of the company, and I called his decision-making into question like 10 times in the proposal. You'll be brilliant, Marcus said, each word a knife in his chest. You know this work better than anyone. Just be yourself. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who has to stand in front of a boardroom full of executives who could fire you for breathing wrong. She paused.
Wait.
When is it? Next Wednesday, I think. Will you come with me? Not to the presentation, obviously, but maybe wait outside? For moral support. Elena's voice was small, vulnerable in a way that destroyed Marcus. I know it's a lot to ask. I'll be there, Marcus said, because he was a coward who couldn't bear to hear her disappointed. I promise. They talked for another hour. About her plans for the presentation, about her fears, about everything except the truth that sat between them like a bomb waiting to explode. When they finally hung up, Marcus sat in his dark office, looking out at the city lights. He'd built this empire from nothing. He'd made billion-dollar deals without flinching. He'd faced down hostile takeovers and corporate espionage. But the thought of Elena's face when she discovered who he really was terrified him more than anything he'd ever faced. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Thanks for believing in me, Mark. You're one of the good ones. Marcus closed his eyes. 1 week. He had 1 week to figure out how to tell her, or 1 week to prepare for the moment she'd hate him forever. He suspected he already knew which it would be. The next morning, Marcus showed up as Mark, coffee in hand for Elena. She smiled when she saw him, that smile that made his chest ache, and patted the chair next to her desk.
Seat.
I need your opinion on something. What's up? Elena pulled up her presentation deck. I've been thinking about how to present this to the executives. They're going to care about different things than Patterson did. Less about the design elegance, more about market share and ROI. She glanced at him. You said you were in consulting. You must have sat through 1 million corporate presentations. What would make them listen? Marcus leaned in, studying the deck. This was dangerous territory. He knew too much, could offer insights Mark Collins shouldn't have. But watching Elena's nervous energy, her genuine desire to succeed, he couldn't hold back. Start with a story, he said. Not statistics. A real person with a real problem your product solves. Executives hear numbers all day. They go numb to them. But a story that sticks. Elena nodded, making notes. Like what? Like... Marcus thought. Like your abuela. Tell me about her. Elena's eyes widened. How did you? I mentioned her like once in passing. You said she had arthritis. That she loved her smartphone but struggled with the small buttons. Marcus held her gaze. Start there. Start with someone they might see in their own families. Make it personal. They worked through the presentation together, Marcus offering suggestions that were probably too sophisticated, Elena too focused to question how an intern knew so much about executive psychology. By lunch, they had something powerful, a presentation that balanced heart and hard data, innovation and market viability. This is good, Elena breathed, reviewing the final version. This is really good. Mark, how did you? I told you. Consulting. The lie was so smooth now it barely registered. I sat through a lot of bad presentations. You learn what works. Elena studied him with those eyes that saw too much. You're different, you know that? Most people don't. They don't care like you do. They don't listen like you do. She reached out, her hand covering his on the desk. Thank you. For everything. Marcus looked at their hands, hers small and strong, his hiding under a lie, and felt something break inside him.
Elena.
There you are. Patterson's voice cut through the moment. Elena's hand jerked back. Torres, my office.
Now. Elena pallid.
What's this about? Your little end run around my authority. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Patterson's smile was cruel. My office. 5 minutes. He left, and Elena stood on shaking legs. He knows. He knows I went over his head. He can't prove anything. He doesn't need proof. He just needs an excuse.
Elena klappte her back.
I'm getting fired. Right before the biggest presentation of my career, I'm getting fired.
No.
Marcus stood. No, you're not. I won't let that happen. Mark, you can't. But Marcus was already walking toward Patterson's office, Elena hurrying behind him. Every CEO instinct screamed at him to blow his cover, to end Patterson's career with a single word. But doing so would mean revealing himself to Elena, and somehow that felt worse than watching her get fired. Patterson looked up when they entered, surprise flickering across his face. Collins, this doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. I'm the one who submitted Elena's proposal to the executive team. Elena gasped. Patterson's eyes narrowed. You? An intern? I have connections from my previous work. I believed in the proposal. Still do. Marcus crossed his arms. So, if you're planning to retaliate against Elena, you should know that those same connections will hear about it. And they'll wonder why a department head is more interested in protecting his ego than supporting innovation. The room crackled with tension. Patterson's face cycled through several shades of red before settling on a forced calm. Get out, he said quietly. Both of you.
Now.
In the hallway, Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. Are you insane? You just threatened a department head. He was going to fire you. So, you decided to get fired with me? But she was smiling through her anger. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Probably both, Marcus admitted. Elena laughed, real and surprised and beautiful. Then, before Marcus could process what was happening, she kissed him. Right there in the hallway, she grabbed his shirt and kissed him like he'd hung the moon. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. You're crazy, Mark Collins. But you might be my favorite kind of crazy. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. 1 week until she knew the truth. 1 week until this all fell apart. But right now, with Elena looking at him like he was someone worth believing in, he let himself pretend it might somehow be okay.
It wouldn't be.
But for one perfect moment, he let himself pretend. Don't miss what happens next, the reveal that changes everything. Like this video, drop a comment telling me if you think Elena should forgive Marcus, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 dropping soon. This is about to get messy.